Hello, my name is Valeria Quintero. This is part of Group 4, and today we will be arguing against no-kill shelters and discussing why these types of shelters are not aiding the pet overpopulation problem. So, first, some history and background about no-kill shelters and the problems surrounding them. There are a couple of types of different shelters that have different rules when it comes to the euthanization of animals. So, first we have no kill shelters, and no kill shelters only euthanize pets who are in tremendous suffering or are considered to be extremely dangerous. So, the animal would have to have an incurable illness or perhaps have attacked someone or another pet for a no kill shelter to euthanize them. The next type are animal control shelters, and animal control shelters are government agencies or private shelters who contract with the government. And most animal control centers are a lot more likely to euthanize for far less extreme conditions, such as overpopulation in their facilities, or if an animal has been with them for a long period of time and isn't likely to be adopted. The last type of shelter are open door shelters, and open door shelters have the policy to never turn away an animal, regardless of capacity, and because they have this policy, oftentimes they also have to euthanize more frequently than no-kill shelters. No-kill shelters were originally founded by the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, also known as the SPCA. According to them, no-kill shelters aim to never kill, but end up having to euthanize up to 10% of their animals. They are considered no-kill because the general consensus is that 90% of animals will be adopted. So I've been talking a lot about euthanasia, but what exactly is it and how does it work? Euthanasia is a humane way of putting down an animal without stress or any pain to the animal. It is a highly effective process, and it is euthanasia medication, pentobarbital, which is a seizure medication. It is administered through an IV injection to the leg, directly into the vein. The IV injection shuts down the heart and the brain in 1 to 2 minutes, and again, it is a completely painless process, so the animal never suffers throughout it. There's a lot of information out there as to why no-kill shelters are so essential, but there's a lack of discussion about why kill shelters may be needed. Many shelters are at full capacity, and more dogs roam the streets without a home. Many animals that enter shelters suffer from diseases or have aggressive tendencies that prohibit them from being adopted. The reality is that many animals will never be adopted. So really, the main reason as to why kill shelters are seemingly needed to be implemented is because of overcrowding. Shelters everywhere are experiencing terrible overcrowding, and the shelters don't have the space or the money to accommodate for all the pets that come in and out. Many dogs in shelters are unwanted, and more animals are coming in than out. Breeders and owners are constantly sending animals to shelters, contributing to the problem. Out of the 6.5 million animals that enter shelters every year, only about 50% are adopted, leaving into question what should be done with the other 50% who aren't fortunate enough to be taken into a home. As a society, we value the life of pets and dogs very highly, and oftentimes even consider them to be our family members. But the reality is, as much as we would all love to save every single animal and give them a home they deserve, it is just not possible, and kill shelters offer a humane solution to the overpopulation problem we face.
My name is Michelle Menchaca, and I'll continue to talk about the issue of overcrowding. Approximately 6.5 million companion animals enter U.S. animal shelters nationwide every year. Only 3.2 million of those shelter animals are adopted each year, half of them being dogs and half of them being cats. Only 1.5 million shelter animals are euthanized, with it majorly being cats. As you can see from this graph, there are a lot more animals being taken in by shelters that are adopted or even euthanized yearly, which results in a huge overcrowding problem. An ethical aspect of the issue of overcrowding, it is that an animal in a no-kill shelter runs the risk of spending their life confined to a cage, since they are not guaranteed to be adopted and are not euthanized. Thus, the animal lives a lonely life within the shelter. Richard Avancino, the former head of San Francisco SPCA and the current president of Maddie's Fund, states that about 700,000 of the 3 million dogs killed each year are, as he calls it, legitimate euthanizations, animals that are unadoptable because of health or behavior. Unadoptable animals are often victims of difficult circumstances, which may leave the animal to suffer from separation anxiety, have a lack of socialization skills, and a barking problem. Not all dogs are fit for adoption or are meant to live the rest of their lives in an animal shelter. Animal shelters are very easily overpopulated, which leads them to turn away unwanted pets unless the pet has a serious illness, even if there isn't enough space for that animal. Owners who are not capable of taking care of an animal and are unable to take them to the shelter may simply abandon them to suffer in the streets due to the overcrowding. The consequences of abandonment include that abandoned animals have become dependent on their owner in order to survive and do not always adapt to living on the streets. These animals do not have food or water available at all times, which leads to possible death by starvation. There is also the danger posed by ongoing traffic in which strays can easily be run over since they are not used to watching out for cars. The increasing amount of stray animals results in an increased amount of stray animals present. According to the World Health Organization, there are over 200 million stray dogs present worldwide. The American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty approximates that around 3 million of these dogs enter animal shelters yearly in the United States alone. Stray dogs also cause safety issues for people by causing traffic accidents, attacking members of the community, or spreading disease. Nearly 55,000 people die from rabies yearly, according to WHO. No-kill shelters become overpopulated very quickly, but tend to try to maintain a 90% success rate of animals adopted. Therefore, shelters often feel pressured to maintain the goal and tend to become more lenient in letting animals with health or temperament problems become adopted. These animals are often returned to the shelter or abandoned if too many problems arise for the owner. Taking care of a sick animal or training a pet to become docile is a huge responsibility and is not an easy task. A possible solution to unadoptable pets are rehabilitation programs that are available to animals in order to reduce overcrowding and give every animal the best possible chance to become adopted. Organizations such as the ASPCA make the effort to rehabilitate these animals so that they are ready to find a home.
Hello, my name is Marco Ulloa, and I am the group leader of Group 4 against no-kill shelters. And I will be discussing the cultural and sociological importance of large animals. During the end of this slide, I will discuss a solution to limit the high amount of animals being put down. Many of the ethical ways of putting large animals down would to be sending them to slaughterhouses. Because euthanizing a horse can cost up to $175 to $250. Since slaughterhouses are now illegal, it increases horses being homeless and without any owners. In many cases, horses are too old to be taken care of and are really expensive to have. In this article, a horse is too old and was getting euthanized, but was sold in an auction and killed in Mexico by a nail to the head. The reason why this is important is because the way the situation was handled. The horse died inhumanely, and it wasn't right for the owners just to give him up and just couldn't pay the fee just to safely put down the horse. I volunteered at my nearby animal shelter that does a catch and release policy. It captures cats specifically since cats have a high litter of 3 to 4 kittens. After birth, the cat can end up getting pregnant again and again. This will cause cats to eventually overpopulate within a certain community. But what this program does, it captures the cats, it spays and neuters them, then it releases them back to where they were found to prevent overcrowding and reduce population growth. Because when owners start finding kittens, owners start to bring them in without the mother, and then we would tell them, "Oh, leave them there. And then if you can't find the kitten, bring them back." And we would have to euthanize them because they're too young. There's nothing much we can do. So we end up just putting them down. Then on the next slide, I'm talking about spay and neuter. Just like the catch and release program, but without the release, this helps population control. And when they're adopted, owners cannot breed them. The reason for this is because when when breeders start to breed dogs, they usually can't find people to buy the puppies, and they end up having to keep them to a certain amount of time. And then once they can't handle the amount of money being spent for those pets, they end up surrendering them to the shelter, and then it causes overcrowding since all those dogs cannot find any owners. And then this will also help reduce the high amount of euthanasia deaths, just like overcrowding, because overcrowding will lead up to the shelter euthanizing them, since they have to find more room for potential dogs that can be adopted. Then on the next slide, fostering. I foster animals myself, and it's probably one of the best things I've done, and it's one of the easiest things to do, because shelters are glad to give you the resources needed to take care of the animal. Whenever I'd go and ask them, like, "Oh, you need fosterkins," and they say yeah, and they did give me supplies such as litter, toys, food, etc. And it helps benefit the young animals from being euthanized and gives them a chance to live, because many cases shelters cannot take care of small kittens. Like in the previous slide, they would have to put them down. But if they can find fosters to foster them, they can supply them with the baby formula, and then a small amount of food just to keep them alive. And then once they grow old, we can take them back to the shelter so they can be adopted. And then this helps everyone, since those who cannot afford to take care of an animal, it gives them the chance to raise the animal and give them back once they're old enough to become adopted. Because there's always people who can't afford a pet but always wants one, and this gives them the chance to live it up and benefit both the shelter and the people. Thank you.
Into perspective, no-kill shelters may not be as beneficial to animals as they initially may seem. The reality is that there is overpopulation and animals are suffering because of it. Perhaps it may not be the most ideal situation to euthanize innocent animals, but in the long run, they do suffer less. Animals that are deemed to be unadoptable spend years in a cage in a shelter without a real place to call a home. It is the most humane thing to give them a comfortable and quick death rather than letting them suffer in a confined space. No-kill shelters do not provide that quick and easy relief to these animals. Instead, they have to suffer and watch other animals get adopted and wonder why they never get chosen. These are the reasons why we are against no-kill shelters. Thank you.